What do you do when you have an OCD intrusive thought or feeling? It matters, and what you do is going to determine whether you're successful. Stay tuned. That's what's next. Hi, my name is Natasha Daniels. I'm a therapist and make videos for people with anxiety or OCD. And today I want to talk to you about what you do when OCD comes knocking. What do you do when you have that intrusive thought or that intrusive feeling? That is key, because at that point, what you do is going to make or break your long-term success. So I'm going to dive all into that, but before I get started, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified, because I do make new videos every Thursday. Okay, so OCD comes knocking. I call this defense. If you haven't seen my offense defense video, it's here, and it's important to know because that's your daily approach of how you're going to handle OCD. With OCD, you have to have a plan. People don't typically just get better because they're waiting and seeing, maybe this will get better, maybe this won't get worse. You can't dilly-dally with OCD because OCD can be a big beast. And so having a plan is really important. And that plan includes, what am I going to do when OCD comes knocking? Maybe it's knocking on your door a zillion times a day. Maybe it comes knocking on your door once or twice a day. It doesn't matter. What does matter is what you do when the door is knocking. And so let's talk about that. So when OCD is like, hey, I think that you might get sick from that, or hey, I think you're a bad person because of, or hey, I think you thought this and you're racist, or hey, that doesn't feel like it's complete enough. Notice all of those thoughts are completely different. Why? Because OCD has a zillion different flavors and themes. It doesn't matter. It's the same foundation. OCD gives you an intrusive thought or feeling. It could be I'm a bad person. It could be it's contaminated. It could be I'm going to get sick. It could be anything, right? That's upsetting. That's the intrusive thought. It could be a feeling. Oh, this is so disgusting. Or oh, this isn't feeling complete. Or I don't think I understood that enough. It could be anything. Everyone's different. So intrusive thought or feeling, and part B is the need to do or avoid something to get that brief relief, whether it's a mental compulsion, a physical compulsion, or hooking someone into a conversation so that you get that reassurance that completes your OCD loop. When we want to disrupt that, we have predictable patterns. OCD's like, I know that when I give her this thought, she's going to run off and go do what I want, right? So I'm going to give her an intrusive thought. Hey, you know what? Are you sure that's blah, blah, blah? And you're going to do the very predictable thing. You're going to do your OCD compulsion. OCD knows exactly what you're going to need to do, and it's going to tell you what to do or avoid, or what to ask, or what to say. It's different for each person. A compulsion will look different for each one of you, but the foundation's the same. It's something that you do or avoid or hook someone into to get that brief relief from the intrusive thought or feeling, right? So OCD sees that you're predictable. I tell them this intrusive thought or feeling and they run off and they go do what I need. They wash, they check, they ask, they confess, they redo, they cancel out, whatever it is for you. They mentally argue, they mentally debate, they check in their head. It is so different for each person, but really the whole foundation, like I keep saying, is the same. And so one of the main ways to crush your OCD and make it this tiny little thing in your life is to disrupt that pattern. OCD depends on that pattern. A, intrusive thought or feeling. B, the need for you to do that compulsion. C, you just grow me bigger, right? It's like boop, 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 boop. It's predictable. So your job is to make that less predictable, to disrupt that loop. So when you get OCD relief, it's actually because you are not scratching the itch, you're disrupting that pattern that is actually scientifically, it's like those neural pathways that are getting rewired in the same predictable way that OCD wants, that grows it. So when you disrupt that pattern, you're disrupting that loop. If we want to get sciencey on it, you're disrupting the neural pathways from firing, which actually disrupt OCD, which actually bring you relief long-term. So short-term struggle, long-term success. That's the key. You might be thinking, oh my gosh, that's way too overwhelming. I can't disrupt that because it's so uncomfortable or it's so anxiety producing. She just doesn't understand. And I do get it. But I also know that I've watched so many people in my practice, people in my own family, my own children, who have these struggles, and I've watched them not scratch that itch, and I've watched them get better. And so a baby step is disrupting the pattern. That doesn't mean that you don't do the compulsion. It just means that I'm going to disrupt this pattern. So it's A plus B equals C. Ding, 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 right? Ding, ding, ding. Well, what if it's ding, dun, making OCD wait? Ding, ding, right? What if I'm disrupting the pattern by delaying, one of the components of it? So it's like tick, 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 right? And I'm going to delay it. So delaying doing a compulsion, and now it depends on your compulsion. Some people can't delay these things or it doesn't fit into delaying. But for a lot of compulsions like checking or asking or washing or doing it again, you can delay the action or even the mental thing that you were going to do if you can catch it in time and make OCD wait. Making OCD wait is powerful. It disrupts that predictable pattern and it disrupts those neural pathways. And so start with delaying. Now, as you progress, you might be able to say, you know what, I'm delaying it for 5 minutes or 30 seconds, whatever it is for you. It doesn't matter. Don't get hung up on the number because it'll look different for each person depending on where you are and how big your OCD is, right? You might be able to delay it for a very long period of time. It doesn't matter. It's your delay, right? To the edge of discomfort. Now, you might do that for a while and then you might be like, you know what? I delayed it for 5 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever, and I really don't feel like I need to scratch that itch anymore. Like, I'm feeling a little bit better. Or you might be like, nope, I have to go do it. I'm great now, right? And you can extend out, how long can I delay it? If I'm starting at 5 minutes, maybe I'll do 10, 15 minutes, 30 seconds to a minute, to a minute and a half, right? Whatever you're starting with. But what is interesting is the more that you do that, the more when you get to that point where you're like, okay, I don't have to delay this anymore, or you don't even watch the clock, it turns into the next step, which is ignoring, right? So when I don't feed OCD at all, I don't do any of what OCD wants, then there's a lot of relief because I'm not scratching that itch. I'm not writing those neural pathways and firing them and, reconfirming that this is the pattern. Boop, 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 boop. It's like boop, boop, nothing. Actually be boop and then nothing, right? Because you're not even doing the second part. So it's just boop, boop, lonely message out there, boop. And then eventually OCD is just like, oh, boop, I'm not even going to try anymore. And that's how OCD relief happens. Is it's not bothering you as much. And so you can have those intrusive thoughts or feelings because that's not the part we get to control. And it doesn't have as big of an impact on you because you've learned not to scratch the itch. I recently had a bunch of mosquito bites. I went outside and something was just feasting on me, which was very annoying. And I haven't been able to sleep for the last couple of nights because my feet are all bitten up, and the more I scratch it, which feels so good in the moment, the worse it gets. And they haven't healed, and they actually are worse because I keep scratching them. That's like OCD. Like when you scratch it, it feels so good. In that second, you're like, I just did what OCD wants. It's quiet. I feel relief. And then it's worse. And so eventually last night I was like, no scratching. You want to sleep, put some socks on. And I was like, no matter how bad they itch, you're not scratching it. And I slept better because they didn't bother me because I wasn't scratching it. And so it's a good metaphor for OCD. So build up to not scratching that itch. Disrupt the pattern in whatever way you can. Now, when you get really, really good at this, you disrupt it so much that you can do the opposite of what OCD wants. So OCD says, oh my gosh, I think you're a bad person because you might be blah, blah, blah. And you're like, I may or may not be that. Or I may or may not get sick. Or you know what? I'm not going to check that. Or you know what? That might happen, right? So you really push, or OCD says, don't touch that. And you're like, oh wait, this? Ooh, that bothered you? Now that can take a lot of time to build up to. And some of you are just like, oh, I could do that for some things. I didn't know that would be helpful. And so play with that. Play with how can I disrupt what OCD wants me to do in this moment? And it might look different for each moment or each thought or each feeling or how you're doing that day in general. But I want you to ask yourself, how can I disrupt this pattern? OCD just hit the number 1 bell and it wants me to go to number 2, which will definitely feed into number 3, which means it's growing bigger, back to number 1, right? So how can I disrupt this in any small way? And start with that. Well, I hope that you find the sparkle in everything you do. And I'll be back again here next Thursday. For those of you that are parents that are watching, I am running a free series that is starting next week. And you can sign up for that at atparentingsurvivalseries.com. There are like 3 videos in this series you can watch on demand as the series is happening. If you watch this and it's past next week. The series is running until May 12th, 2023. So feel free to sign up at adparentingsurvivalseries.com, and I'll see you over there. Take care.